Yo, people, welcome back. Lateness is greatness. And we had a couple of technical issues, but we got it done in the end. And it's an absolute pleasure to be joined by Pat Nevin and also my dad as well, who can help shed the light for the younger audience on this magical, legendary career that we have to speak about at the top. Listen, big up to the chat. It's great to see you all in here. You've been really excited. Since I put this stream up last night, everybody's just been going crazy. And then they realized it's actually this morning and not last night that the stream was happening. So, Pat, listen, welcome to the show, man. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. How are you?
I'm absolutely great. By the way, just so everyone knows, technical issues were mine, not from yourself.
I'll take it.
But yeah, absolutely fantastic. I'm in Scotland at the moment, and it's blazing sunshine. These are two things that don't often happen together at the same time. So I'm very happy.
Lovely stuff. And like I said, you know, everybody's going to know you media-wise from Chelsea TV and obviously the radio as well. But it's very important that we touch upon the career. And Dad, this is where you come in. Welcome to the show. I think you've been on here before during the Lampard stint as well, when we was having all the debates towards the end of his time. So, I mean, take it away and let the people know about the glossing career that we have to speak about here.
Yeah, absolutely. I had to hijack this a little bit. When Matisse told me that he was going to be chatting with Pat Nevin, I was like, whoa, hang on, whoa. This is like, and I explained to him, you know, when I was a kid, the first Chelsea shirt I ever got, I made my mum buy number 7 and sew it in the back of the shirt, because in those days there was no printing, there was no names, but I needed to have a 7 in the back of my first Chelsea shirt. And that was obviously in honour of you, because you were such a legend there for us in my first days at the Shed. So yeah, had to jump on here and say hi. And I thought it'd be good maybe to sort of chat a little bit about, you know, what made you a legend at Chelsea and why, you know, people have such a, you know, a strong connection with you of a certain age and what you did at Chelsea. And so on that basis, I guess, you know, for people that didn't know you, you were quite a sort of a slight winger, a very sort of slight frame. You weren't your typical 80s footballer who, you know, you're very much against the grain in terms of, you know, pump and rush, flick-ons and high, you know, just play it in their half. You're a silky wizard on the wing. You know, it was a breath of fresh air for everyone to see you and see your skills, and you really stood out as a result of that. So I was wondering now, as you know, as you're a pundit and you cover media on football over, and you watch these and you see these beautiful pristine pitches like carpets, and you see the referees protecting all the skillful players, and you see managers trying different formations and not just rigid 4-4-2s. I mean, how sort of jealous are you that you're not playing now rather than sort of back then? And how would the mid-80s Pat Nevin do in today's sort of modern Premier League football, do you think?
Well, first of all, Carl, absolutely lovely to meet you. It's kind of odd, though, because when I kind of left, I had a almost 20-year career, 5 of them at Chelsea, and there were 5 fantastic years at Chelsea. I loved the club. I love the club still. But those 5 years were extra special. Now, in the 80s, there weren't that many teams playing a purer form of football that I would have, you know, enjoyed much more. But we were quite a decent football team. But you're right, there was a lot more kick and rush football than you would actually get now. But that was the English way, and very specifically the English way. A guy called Charles Hughes did the tactics for the English FA. Now, let me let everyone know, everybody else in the world was laughing at you, England, because everyone else, from the Brazilians to the Dutch, everyone was doing something else, including the Scots, trying to do something much more sophisticated. But the English were going for this long ball game. And so it was kind of hard to survive within that, because, you know, you had to wait for the thing to come out of the air before you could do something with it. But we tried maybe a little bit more subtle football for a few years. And even when I left Chelsea, I went to Everton. They were known as a school of science. And they would have a more technical side than most teams as well. So, yeah, with the pitches now, you know, you don't have to have bobbly pitches that these players play on. Can I tell you a wee story? I'll break away, just tell you.
Definitely.
Everyone who's listening, right? Just to show you how bad it is, right? The pitches were rubbish most of the time back then, apart from the start of the season. You know, now and again out in the wing, they were a wee bit better, but they were a bit rubbish. So we have tried to play skillful players. Now, you had to be Diego Maradona to play really skillful in those pitches. You had to be that good. But I just always wondered, what would the great players of today do in a pitch like that? Mm. Lo and behold, about 4 or 5 years ago, I can't remember exactly how many, there was a game between Manchester City at their silky best playing against Spurs. Am I allowed to mention that? Against Spurs at Wembley. the day after an NFL game, and the pitch was cut up, and it played like the pitches we played on. They couldn't do it. They could. The current players actually couldn't play their style of football on our style of pitches. Now that does tell you a little bit of the story. Like, there's lots of things that have improved in the game, many things that improved in the game, but in actual fact, it's almost impossible to compare, because it's always, how would you do now? How about, how would they do then?
I mean, you think you'd maybe find it easier now because you've got all the sports science and the nicer pitches. You're better taken care of as well medically. So maybe you would say that it would be easier now. Would you feel like that?
I have to say, up until about, I'm trying to think, 5 or 6 years ago, I don't think it would have been as easy for me, because there was so much power and physique still involved in the game. However, since Barca, and Xavi, Iniesta, and all the things that were happening there with Pep's teams, etc., and then since Manchester City, I think a player like me would have survived better. But about 10 or 11 years ago, I covered a lot of games for a variety of organisations, including the BBC, but also for Chelsea, etc. And I went to a game, and a player walked on the pitch, and 10 minutes into it, I thought, that's how I was trying to play. Finally found one player who was exactly the player I thought I was trying to be. He's probably better than me, but that's my style. And it was David Silva.
Oh, wow.
This young lad walked on, and I watched him move, and I thought, that's how what I was trying to do. Problem is, back then, we played, as Carl correctly says, rigid 4-4-2s or 4-3-3s, and you'd be stuck out in the wing. Well, you don't ask David Silva to stand out in the wing.
Exactly.
You say, create space. Fortunate thing for me was I also played international football, and international football was different. I was allowed to play 10 half positions and things like that, because it was more sophisticated in international football. But to be honest, English football, it was technically or tactically, it was quite backward I thought anyway, even when I was playing.
I think also that funny you mentioned the Scottish team and the national team, there was more talented footballers in the Scottish team of the 80s than there was in the England team. And you're thinking about the likes of Alan Hampton coming out from the back, Gordon Strachan, who was obviously a rival for the opposition, Paul McStay, the maestro in the middle of the park. I mean, you had some wonderful players. England, it was more like, Gary Stevens, Trevor Steven, the sort of the workhorses, the guys that were back and forth, up and down the pitch. So I definitely there was more culture coming out of Scotland, I think, than there was in England those days, for sure.
Certainly, we had a history where we didn't look to learn from the English; we looked to learn from elsewhere. Now, can I underline this just now before anyone starts thinking, Mr. Anti-English here? I'm not English at all, right? But that style I didn't like. It's as simple as that. And it's, but you had no choice. I mean, I loved Chelsea. I went to Chelsea, and I wanted to do my best while I was there. So there was no point even complaining about it. You just manage from within it and try to, within the team, develop relationships with a lot of the players. Now, I had a guy called Stevie Clark, who's now Scotland manager, who was playing behind me, and a great relationship with him. So he wouldn't be lumping the ball up to strikers. Him and I would be playing more intricate plays, and I would work with the players. There was one kid we lost left back, and this kid I grabbed from the youth team, and I started working with him, showing him what to do in a better technical way. Annoyingly, after about 6 months, I was beginning to struggle to get by this kid, this left back that I got from the youth team. So that was slightly upsetting. But then I didn't know that he was going to be England's next left fullback. He was going to be brilliant. So Graham Lasso turned into a real top player. But I'd worked with him a bit to be in a more technical sense. But within all that, there's no complaints. And by the way, your question's a good one. Am I jealous? The answer is not in the slightest. There is not a scintilla of jealousy at all. I had a joy in my time playing football. I had 20 years of it, and it was very different in the different clubs I went to. And Chelsea was fantastic. But at the end of it, I ended up getting paid to travel the world, talking about football. When people say, are you jealous? Now, I remember the first time I got asked that question, and I was sitting in a 5-star hotel on top of a cliff in the island of Jeju in South Korea before a World Cup game with Brazil. when Ronaldo was playing, or Roberto Carlos and Rivaldo. Somebody said, do you not miss it as how it would be better now for you? And I'm thinking, I'm having a ball here. This is brilliant. Paid for going to watch football. The BBC have set me Korea and Brazil for the World Cups. I mean, I'm not going to sit and complain. So it's not jealous of. And the other thing is, the lads just now, you're in the media all the time. You're constantly getting pushed. Particularly some social media things can be, as we know, unfair and dreadful and awful and vile. We didn't have to put up with any of that. So there's swings and roundabouts.
Yeah. Wow.
Staying on the theme then of the sort of the now and then, I don't know, have you been to Cobham? I know you've worked for Chelsea quite a bit, but I know you're based in Scotland. So have you been to Cobham? Have you seen the facilities at Chelsea now? And how different really is Chelsea FC now compared to 1984, 85 when you were in your heyday?
Oh, they're different clubs. I mean, absolutely different clubs. I mean, we certainly tried to be as professional as we could back then, but we trained at Harlington, which, you know, if the wind blew, it was almost impossible to play, train, because it was such an open area. We get changed in these. I mean, Ruud Gullit was at the club when we were still training out there. I mean, the facilities weren't any better than the university halls of residence. And I mean the student halls. I don't mean the club. really, really poor. But we didn't care. We were there just to play football and learn and to live it. But silly things would happen. Like, we had to stop. I don't know if you know this. We had to stop at 10:45 during training every morning. Training stopped for about 5-6 minutes. We all just stopped because Concorde took off at that point in time. And you can't hear anyone when Concorde was taking off. So this beautiful plane would take off because it's right beside Heathrow, right? I mean, right beside Heathrow. And we would be sitting there going, I have to wait for this thing to take off again. So you couldn't train. Silly things would happen all the time. I love training back at Heathrow, by the way, because, and this sounds a wee bit flashy like the modern football, but trust me, it's not. Because we had a day off on Wednesday. So I knew if I finished training on Tuesday, I could go round the corner, 10 minutes away, park up, get on a plane and fly to usually Glasgow or Edinburgh, to see my friends, but sometimes other places. Have a nice time there, and then fly back Thursday morning in the red eye. If I got in and landed at 10 o'clock, I'd be out and training by 10:30. And nobody was any the wiser where I'd been. And I could have been anywhere. Say the negative things about where we used to train, but there was positives as well.
Yeah, of course. That's that landing spot there. Carry on.
Social media to track you in those days and what you're up to.
Exactly.
Not that you're, but they're
the
not
generation now would be tracking them on their phones. The plane landing at 10:30 a.m. Okay, Pat's here now.
The other thing, of course, that makes you a bit different, is you might have had the likes of Charlie Nicholas in Stringfellows drinking champagne and being photographed at the page 3 models and all over the Sunday papers, but you often to be found in the Brixton Academy watching The Fall or Wedding Present or something along those sorts of lines. And you are a very different sort of character from the typical 80s footballer for sure. But again, if social media was around then, we'd have had a very different set of pictures of you, I'm sure, rocking out to some gigs and going around art galleries and God knows what else, which would have been quite cool. Okay, but there you go.
I thought that made me normal. I thought the kids were all weird because they didn't read the stuff that I read and was into the art or the music. I mean, when I was saying that I would fly off somewhere, by the way, I was on a standby flight because I couldn't afford the full fare. All right. That well paid at Chelsea. I will tell you what I earned in a moment. You'll find that very funny. And I would fly. There was one time, certainly one occasion, where on a Tuesday I got on a plane and flew to Paris, and I flew to Paris, then got on a train south to a place called Bourges in the centre of France to go and watch a band called the Cocteau Twins. I wasn't going there for anything like that. I just wanted to see this band, and instead that night, and then when I finally got back via Bourges, the manager just said in the morning, "You're 5 minutes late." And I said, "Yeah, it's a fine. It's except we should a tenner, not a lot of money." And I said, "Yeah, I get caught up in traffic." And he went, "Oh, that's fine." The traffic happened to be in Paris, which I didn't mention. But I did tell the truth. I was caught up in traffic trying to get a plane. Do you want to know about that? But the money thing, because usually people do.
It's an interesting one.
Yeah, I was doing a degree in Glasgow, so that's why I was maybe quite different from the rest. So I was studying in Glasgow and I was playing part time, and I turned Chelsea down the year before because I didn't want to be a footballer. So I know, weird.
Well, that's wild.
But I loved playing football, and that's complicated because I loved playing football more than anybody else in the team. But I didn't fancy the idea of being a professional footballer. And I was doing my degree, and I turned Chelsea down and other clubs down for a year. But eventually I agreed to come to Chelsea and do a 2-year sabbatical. I'll have a go at it for 2 years, right?
Yeah.
I was only about 19. And I came down and I signed for £180 per week for Chelsea.
Wow.
Much to their surprise, and indeed to mine, within a few weeks of getting the first team. And that's just as Kai was saying there, I was a skinny wee guy. They didn't expect me to do so well. Anyway, by the end of the season, I'm Chelsea's Player of the Year, and I'm on £180 a week. my flat that I let in the Earls Court was £100 a week, right? I had to pay tax. I'm Chelsea's Player of the Year with 20 quid a week.
Pocket money.
Exactly.
For getting Player of the Year.
I have to feed myself. Fortunately, we won which was the second division that year, to get promoted, and we got win bonuses, so I had enough to get by. But that was an incredible thing to go through. But it was a nice learning curve, and you didn't get carried away with yourself. But it was a very so. You're asking, have things changed? I think we can actually
just a little bit. They're kind of driving in Ferraris now and whatnot, and getting paid hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds. So slight change there.
Before you get the violins out, within 2 years, I was driving a little green MGB GT, and I was on 500 quid a week. So it was all right.
Oh, okay. So it did get. Well, you'd hope the Player of the Year would get that treatment.
Absolutely.
Transitioning into the modern day as well, because Billy Gilmour is a fellow Scot as well, so it's a good place to start because he's a very talented young player. Obviously, Frank Lampard gave an opportunity gave his debut to, I think he got Sheffield United at home last season. And now, he's kind of not really seen the game time, but we was kind of warned of that by Thomas Tuchel when he said, he's kind of bottom of the pecking order just due to seniority. What have you made of his time at Chelsea? Do you feel like, the lack of minutes means he should go out on loan, and Scottish football on a whole right now before we go to Chelsea? Are you confident? Are you looking forward to the future with these kind of players coming through? Tierney as well.
Well, with Tierney's phenomenal. I tried my best to get Chelsea to buy Tierney, but it didn't. Anyway, there you go. It was after me trying them to get Chelsea to buy a guy called Van Dijk, and they wouldn't buy him either. Anyway, there you go.
Pat the scout.
You don't get them all right. Anyway, so Billy's interesting because the technical side of the game, Billy's as good as anyone around, right? So, in that midfield area, he's got it, and he's going to be fine in time. Now, it depends who you ask and from whose position you ask that question about, should he have gone on loan or whatever, right? And I think, is that Roddy who asked that question?
Yeah, Roddy here with the super chat. Thanks very much as well.
Yeah. So I would, if you're Scottish, get out on loan now. Billy, get out there. We need you. We need you playing every week, because if you're not playing every week, you can't play in the Scotland first team, and we could really do with you. If you're Thomas Tuchel, you're thinking, well, if you go on loan, it better be to the right team that plays the right way. If you go and play in a team that isn't that technical type of team, you're not going to learn anything. So some players have gone out on loan. I mean, Mason Mount, he's done okay after his loan, hasn't he? He's done quite well, let's be fair. But others struggle a wee bit, and it doesn't work so well for them. But other players do never go on loan, and it works for them. Now, there's very few these days because of the standard at the top level. But you look at, Manchester City's Phil Foden, he never went out on loan. And it looked like the right thing for him to do, go out on loan. He never did. But look at him now. He's been training with those guys every week. He is now one of those guys. And he's probably one of the best of those guys now.
Yeah.
So in the long term, it worked for him. So it sounds a very easy question. Should he go on loan? Do you know what? There isn't an easy answer. There really isn't a correct answer. It's what's right for him in the short, medium, and long term. Can be different things. I will admit that I did one loan in my career, I kind of thought it was beneath me. Because I wanted to get back into the Scotland squad for the Euros. And it worked. And I'd fallen out with the manager at my club at the time. I was at Everton by that time. And I'd fallen out with the manager, and because he had no taste because he didn't think I was very good. So I went to Tranmere, had 2 months there, got in the Scotland squad and played in the Euros. And it worked a treat.
Wow. Well, it's very difficult, like you say, because of the type of player Billy Gilmour is as well. The loan has to be absolutely perfect for him. There's no point sending him to a team where they don't play with possession and they're playing maybe long ball, they're playing on the counter with a low block. You'd want him to see the football. So this is a very important point to make. Obviously, over the weekend, we had a great result, probably the most complete performance under Thomas Tuchel. He's been brilliant, almost flawless since he's come in, bar the hiccup against West Brom, which they definitely made up for with the result against Crystal Palace. Yes, we conceded the goal, but it was actually the only shot we conceded in the whole game, which was brilliant to see. So probably more defensively compact than the Porto in midweek. So just very loosely, what did you make of the game, and just how happy are you to see us playing that type of football? Does the style of football mean a lot to you? Obviously, during the Roman era, it hasn't always meant a lot. It's always been about winning. So is that style of football and the goals that were scored in that game, does that give you encouragement, or is it just about finally scoring more than 2 goals under the new manager?
Actually, I think a wonderful question about what does it mean to me, style. To be fair, I'm one of these unusual people where the style's maybe more important than the win for me.
Yes.
Quite unusual. I want us to be beautiful to watch. I want my teams. I mean, I can support a team. Do you know what? See if they're playing dull football and it's boring, it's simple, and it's not exciting me. I want us to win, but I shrug my shoulders when we get beat. But if we have got a team that's desperately keen to play forward football all the time, have good technical players in the team, I mean, have a bit of devilment as well, and fight, and a good team spirit, all that stuff as well. Then I'm your biggest fan in the world. And to be honest, I'm fair. I mean, my favourite player for the last 10 years, I loved Eden Hazard, but it was David Silva because he did what I loved. I loved that player for the minute I walked. So I'm fair with people that, I have to be with the job that I do. I mean, I'm talking to the world with the BBC. I can't just say Chelsea players are great, even though I quite like it sometimes. But, the style thing is very important. So what about this weekend? Well, I thought that was amazing. I thought that was stunning style. Now, everyone's been, I got a different opinion every week about players. My opinions don't change that quickly. So, since Kai's come in, Kai Havertz, I've continually said the same phrase. Not a question of if, it's just a question of when. Right. Now, the when might be a wee while. It might be a year and a half. And it infuriates people because of the price tag. But he's young. The technical ability he's got from day one is absolutely amazing. Right. ZH actually, very similar. He'll be fine. He'll be absolutely fine if he can find a space in the team. So we've got these brilliant technical players. And when they do work together and it's smooth, now, it's kind of hard to do in the modern game because the systems are different. We play a 3-4-3. Thanks for that, Deno. We play a 3-4-3. But it's the importance of it is the front three, because that always adapts, right? There are lots of teams play a 3-4-3, but it's not a 3 up front. It's a 3-4-1-2. It's a 3-4-2-1. Or sometimes it's a 3-4-3, wide, and attack. I suspect against, say, Brighton coming up, we'll play with a 3-4-3 because we'll get probably Werner out wide one side, hammer them down because they play at 3 at the back. So the thing about 3-4-3 is it's very, very adaptable and very changeable, but it's usually those front three and what they do and how they and our personnel with them. Every Chelsea fans probably noticed. I'm sorry about a technical bore, but every Chelsea fans probably thought, wait a minute, it's a different 3 up front every time. Why? And I'm watching it every time thinking, why are you doing that? Because you're not doing it because you were lying in the bath last night flipping a coin. There's reasons why you do this if you're Thomas Tuchel. And the fact that it's worked so often is incredible. Now, there's a few of us think, in the past, oh, I wish you'd just stick to the same team. It's always best. There won't be, and particularly in a season like this season, with the work that's needed, and you will have to rotate more than any other season in history. Miles more than any other season in history. You have to understand the rotation of it. And I think he's done a great job in that. So I love it. I love the way we played in that game. But if you look at the individual brilliance of one or two of the players at the moment, I mean, Pulisic, I was trying really hard to get the analogy, to get the metaphor. I finally got it. He was like a cobra. He was like, when they pounce on you and bite. His goals and the way he attacked it was vicious.
The left foot finish was incredible. It really was. It was carbon copy of last year at Selhurst Park. Because they did a mirror up where they did the two goals alongside each other, and he had that left foot at the near post aiming for that top corner. And I love it. Aguero does the same for City. When they go at the near post, they really tend to put their foot through the ball. I was saying to Dad, we was watching the game, that Havertz flick over the head, that class that you're talking about from that Jorginho lofted ball was incredible as well. The team, the front three was so fluid and interchangeable. And what was nice to see is the wing backs really pushed up in that game as well. So you talk about a fluid 3 or 3-4-3, it became a 5 up there. It's similar to the Tottenham away game where they really pushed them up as well. And like you said, they can interchange, they can move about. So it is very fluid. I have to say as well, the defense this season under Tuchel, since he's come in, has been incredible. I mean, as a winger yourself, what would you have made of coming up against Rudiger and the way that he handled Suarez and Christensen, who's been a revelation since, Thiago Silva got injured in that Tottenham game, and Azpilicueta as well, who's been so consistent over the years. What would you make of a winger coming up? How would you even try and exploit this team if you could talk about Chelsea's weaknesses, if there's any?
Well, to be honest, I mean, every player's got a weakness somewhere. There's very, very few. And over the years, you look at some of the defenders that Chelsea have had, going back a few years to Ricardo Carvalho, was one of the best defenders I've ever seen. In a 1-to-1, loves tackling, loves defending, loves marking. But was very good in the ball. Now, to be honest, Tony's decent in the ball, but man, he's not the best I've ever seen in the ball. As an absolute marker and a destroyer and killer of attackers, and there's not, I don't know if there's many better in world football at the moment than him. He is an absolutely brilliant man-to-man defender. Now, I played against maybe one guy who was that standard in one of the teams that I played for over the years, and hilarious and he couldn't play. This guy, he couldn't play. He just couldn't. Not a good footballer at all. But a brilliant marker. He was amazing. Right, so you probably know him now, Martin Keown, right?
Oh yes.
And I played with him at Everton.
Yeah,
and he's got this great line he used to say during games and in training. You got the ball and you looked up and he would say, "No, don't give it to me. I don't want it." Never wanted the ball, right? Because he wasn't great on the ball. He was all right, but he wasn't. But marking, he is absolutely brilliant, and he really was that good, right? Tony's the same. It's absolutely fantastic. So you asked the question of, I would be happy to play against anyone, because I played against some of the best players in the world and I enjoyed playing against them. Most of the best left backs in the world I played against. I mean, as long as they weren't smaller than me, I was happy.
Yeah. And
considering very few were smaller than me, I was generally very happy. Sometimes you can use your smallness to your effect.
Of course, the low sense of gravity, very similar to Eden Hazard, kind of to jinx your way in and out of trouble. And I'd say the lower half of your body had to be quite strong, because we speak about this a lot in terms of the wingers nowadays. They get hit with tackles, and you make the comparisons with Eden Hazard, how now he's very injury prone at Real Madrid, but he was hit with a lot of tackles at Chelsea, very rarely got injured. Christian Pulisic, unfortunately, we just spoke about him, but hit with a lot of injuries. Is that lower half of your body key as a winger to have the lower half strength that you need to withstand the tackles? The shithousery from Akio, I guess.
There's more than one way to do it. There's more than one way to do it. I didn't tell people at the time, I'd been a distance runner. So my other thing, as I'd been growing up, is, I was a marathon runner. I mean, I certainly was a massive cross-country runner to a good standard. But I never told anyone. So I'd go and play football, and they didn't realise I could run forever. Never stopped, never got tired. So that helps. Now you might look spindly But if you can run at a very good pace, and you can outrun everyone else you're playing against, that's another methodology. Now, Eden's one's much more a lower power body thing. But you look at, as I say, Silva or Xavi, Iniesta, it wasn't all lower body power or Juan Mata. It was something else that was balanced, and it was using strength in a very specific way. And everybody has their own way of doing it. There are a number of players there's a guy who played against us the other day there. If you get a chance to watch this guy, honestly, he'd done the square root of nothing against us the other day. But the lad Eze at Crystal Palace, he's probably the best player in England at going by people. I mean, that's a big call.
Big compliment.
How many people there are that we are now getting more players that can go by people. Nobody's better than him, but he's not learned the game yet, and he's not playing in a team that suits him. I mean, Zaha at his best is one of the best as well, but you need to have more than just that, ability to do that. You have to have game awareness, and maybe with wingers that was maybe the biggest problem. And I'd never played in the wing before I went to Chelsea, so I had to learn how to play in the wing. I was a 10 before I came to Chelsea, so that's the sort of thing you need to learn how to do. The Hazard stuff did interesting, by the way. Used to drive me nuts. Eden took hits. Yeah. Took hits. Why take? Because he get the ball and he would stop. Yeah. And then move, and then you get hit. See, if you take that hit, you're not going to get guys. He's not going to get booked for it. See, if you get the ball and you move at pace immediately, then he hits you, he'll get booked. You're not going to get kicked again. So you think in a more technical, modern way than he was taking. He took too many hits that he didn't need to take. Whereas if he took the right type of hit, he would have got, the guy would have been booked, and you're on party time now. But the other side is, and I'm sure Carl will agree with this, I'm not really going to listen to people getting injuries these days, considering the tackles we used to get through. So, let's be fair. It's a bit soft now in comparison.
There was a foul. I don't know if you've seen it earlier, Dad, but there was a McTominay and Son, and McTominay kind of just brushed against his face very slightly, and then it's a foul, and it's like, what? Do you know what I mean? It barely even touched him. So
if you said to Son, I think he might have got a finger in the eye, and I understand him going down. Do you know what I mean? But it's not a foul. You're just pushing off someone trying to get away from them. As you'd have done a lot of times, Pat, when you're trying to get away from a fullback. It's not a foul. It's definitely a goal that was disallowed for no reason, for sure.
It was very disappointing to see it, but there's no point being an old git moaning about it. The game changes, the game moves on, and you have to be accepting and understanding of it. Cheating never changes, so I will always call that out when I'm doing my current job. So I will always call that out. But it's very interesting. I had a conversation about 6 or 7 years ago now with Robbie Savage on it, and Savage is a few years younger than me, and the game was beginning to change when Robbie was still playing, and me being a winger and attack-minded player who took a lot of hits, and I was hammering somebody for diving. I was absolutely battling for diving, and Robbie goes, "Oh yeah, and you never dived in your 850 games, did you?" And I went, "No." And he said, "What?" And I went, "No, I never did." And he could not get his head around the fact that a skillful player who took a lot of hits actually tried to stay in their feet instead of going down. He just couldn't get his head around it. And that's not a complaint about the modern game or Robbie or anything. That's just things change, And can I say one other thing about people talk about the modern game? Everyone's diving. Yeah. Does Messi dive? Not really.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
You don't actually. You can get. Does Mason Mount dive? Really? No. He tends to try and stay in his feet. Yeah. You don't need to do it. And sometimes it's the wrong thing to do because you stop your opportunity to get a goal. Yeah. So the guy doesn't get a booking. Well, you'll get a booking next time. So I have to say I'm not absolutely black and white in that argument. I think I'm not blaming the modern game. I think referees, it's all about them. If the referees see a guy throwing himself to the ground, card. Yeah. Not one player in the game will do it again for the next 90 minutes. But they don't do it. So the referees got a lot to answer for.
Yeah, looking ahead to Porto tomorrow night. I mean, I was just watching Chelsea TV back in the 2012 heyday of the win. Jason Cundy saying everybody stay in their same seats, and the penalty shootout and just reliving all of that. And obviously everyone went crazy at the last kick. Drogba, of course. We've got a good lead, 2-0 aggregate lead against Porto. It's very, people are starting to draw comparisons. We played a Portuguese team in 2012 in the quarterfinal. Now it's another Portuguese team. Looks like potentially Real Madrid, the Spanish team, if we get to the semi-finals after their win against Liverpool as well. How confident are you in this team? Do you think they have the minerals to win this competition, as they would say?
First of all, see all that stuff you look at. What was the Portuguese team, the Spanish team? Yeah. This was the same. That was the same. That means nothing. There's not a single player who cares the stuff about that. You've just got football in front of you, right? But it's nice to look into.
Yeah,
I promise you, it means nothing. It means nothing to players because you've got to just go and do the job in front of you. What you have got is we've had a decent run. This has been a good. It's really been a good run in this competition this season. It was a good campaign in the group stages. I mean, there was not that many slip-ups. Certainly the Sevilla game, amazing. But that Porto away game, I thought that was quite stunning because they're not bad. They're a decent team. They're well organised. And by the end of the game, I was doing the commentary for Chelsea TV. And after about half an hour, you can see certain things. And I thought, they aren't as strong as us. In the last 20 minutes and in the second leg, they're not going to be as strong as us because we can make all these changes. It's the end of the season and they fought and they battled. You've got to give them that. They really did. But I just thought, we're ahead of them. And it's, now and again, there's just a phrase comes, and I don't use it very often. We've got this. Really, we've got this. And I'm not often that ultra confident because football's not like that. You feel as if you can have it sometimes and the referee does something stupid, like sends off Thiago Silva for looking at somebody. So hopefully, if nothing silly happens in this game, I think I'm quite comfortable with us. I think we can start looking ahead to the semis. Real Madrid, typical Real Madrid. I've watched it over the years. You watch them early season, you think sometimes you think you're a bunch of old men. How can you even claim to be good enough anymore?
Yeah, Ramos.
Find a way to do it on the day, and they are the Champions League team over history. So they know that you can do whatever you want in La Liga, but you're keeping yourself for these games. So if we do get through, and if it is them instead of Liverpool, I was at a Liverpool game at the weekend there, and to be honest, they're a long way away from where they were. They're a very long way. So I'm be confident if it was Liverpool. It'll be a tough game against Real Madrid. You don't want to look any further than that, but I wouldn't be surprised to see us in the final. I won't be surprised. I will be surprised if we win the final. Hands up, honest, But it to happen this quickly, guys, and girls, obviously listening. It's amazing it's happened this quickly that we're getting this far. Because there's a lot of new players. There's a lot of rebuild. There's a new coaching. I mean, I personally thought Frank was doing a decent job, but look, that's the way it is at Chelsea. If you're not doing a phenomenal job, you move on. The next guy comes in. That's just a gig. It's not personal. Clearly not personal because we all love Frank. Yeah, so it wasn't personal. Upsetting though it was, but if we managed to get even to the semi-finals, it's been a success. Yeah, the real gig is, it'd be brilliant if we could do it again. And it would.
I've thought about it so much now.
Can I tell you another quick wee story?
Go on.
I have to be honest, right? I have to be terribly honest, right? So I was in Moscow for the Man United one, so we got beat, which was torture. I was talking about bad hits. I had a hip replacement less than a week before, but I was going to be there. Didn't care, right? So by the way, hip replacement isn't being old. That's being kicked lumps out of by hefty fullbacks, okay? Just so you know. But I went, we get beaten that one. And it was torture. Didn't sleep for 2 days and crutches and pain and all that sort of stuff. But we get beat. So you do your things for the club you love because we'd never win it. And then up comes going over to Bayern Munich. And a terrible thing happens. I've been asked to cover it in the media. So I'm getting paid to watch Chelsea in Champions League final. Great. This is the life, right? I turned it down. And exactly, yeah.
I'm gasping twice now.
I love the shock in your face there, right?
What?
But let me try this one on you, okay? I have a Scottish team and an English team, right? My Scottish team's Hibernian now. It used to be Hibernian, right? And I love Hibernian. Hibernian were playing the Scottish Cup final. They hadn't won it for 104 years. They were playing against Heart of Midlothian, their big rivals in the Scottish Cup final. Yeah. This would be the biggest game in that club's history. It was on the same day. And I worked for, at the time I was like the main pundit. I was your Alan Shearer type person for BBC Scotland TV. So I was the main pundit. So they want me to do that. And I'm thinking, I can't do both.
That's a headache. That is a headache.
A real headache. And I thought, I'm going to be real, man. I'm going to be real. I'll stick with the local club. So I did the Hibs game. It was at 3 o'clock against Hearts, and didn't do the Chelsea game. Hibs got beat 5-1. Right.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Not a great decision.
God, that really is a fall from grace, that is.
But I've got to tell you what, there was a positive in it. So I'm doing that. You beat 5-1 with a and this story goes on forever, and I'm not going forever, I promise. I had to then do the highlights show that night, our version of Match of the Day.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there giving it, can't believe it. You know, I'm going to talk to all these. It's like a Chelsea guy talking about getting beat 5-1 by Spurs, right? It's exactly. And however, as the countdown was happening for me to go live on air, I've got my earpiece in.
Yeah.
And the countdown's going 6, 5, or just about going there. As he gets to 4, Didier Drogba scores the penalty to win us the Champions League. I'm jumping about the studio like a nutcase. 3, 2, 1. Great.
Locked. I don't even know. There's no way I'm keeping that professionalism in that moment. I remember that night, and Mum was absolutely screaming at me. You know, you got school in the morning. You're waking up the whole house. I said, I don't care. You can kick me out of the house now. This is my day.
see, the time I did a thing, I've been writing for the Chelsea website for about 1 million years, right? And I have a column every Tuesday. In fact, you've put me off. I'm supposed to be writing tomorrow's right now. But one of the things, instead of writing a column after that, I just wrote, tell me what you did that as soon as Didier scored.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's the biggest reaction to anything I've ever had in my life. Anything. I wrote a nice column that said, just write to me and tell me what you did. And the stories I got from Chelsea fans, I mean, everyone, there were 3 broken legs. 3 people broke legs.
That doesn't even surprise me.
Jumping up, falling down, broken leg. One guy who was in a trench in a war. He was a doctor, right? And he was in a trench and he'd been shot at. He was walking.
I should have laughed.
He's going, yeah, but he couldn't put his hands up. They shot his hand off.
Oh, no.
So, anyway, you asked me normal questions. I should give you a wee bit more normal. But, yeah, it'd be nice if we won, because the Chelsea fans would love it again. And we're outsiders, let's be fair about it. But when I look at what we've got, you know, Timo's going to be better. Mason's unbelievable what he's doing now.
Yeah.
How we are building it at the moment. You know, we'll find out how good we are in about 3 years. But whatever we do in the meantime is fantastic, because we're building something special, and it looks very, very special. And Havertz is a fabulous player. Timo's got fabulous talents. You know, he's not the most technically gifted player in comparison to Havertz. Yeah. But some of the buys that we've made have been pretty special, and the fact that there's a lot of youth there, it's fantastic, and that's taken for granted.
It is. Yeah. There was a time we couldn't get any homegrown players into this team. Now they're everywhere, and
it's because they're good enough. I have a slight difference with a lot of people. A lot of people say, "Oh, Chelsea were terrible, never got these players through." Were they good enough for Chelsea? They were good enough to be pros, but this is Chelsea. This is a world-class team. It's hard to develop world-class players. And how many are you going to point to me and say he was world-class and we never kept him? But I mean, I know you could say Salah and De Bruyne, but
De Bruyne, everybody like, yeah, Lukaku.
Through our system, he didn't come through our system. They didn't come through our system. Those were errors, big errors, and that's why when people say to me, you know, Havertz is not doing it, maybe we should cash in, and I'm thinking, look, like you did with De Bruyne, like you did with Salah, I think not. So I'm pretty excited about the team we've got, but I'm also, unlike a lot of football fans, I'm patient as well.
Yeah,
I like where we're going, and I'll enjoy watching it because it looks good, it's enjoyable, it's entertaining, and there's quality players.
Yeah. Well, just to come to the end of the Porto part, I mean, would you be able to give us a sneaky lineup? Who would you pick, or is that being too cheeky?
No, I don't. Honestly, I'd be absolutely hand up honest. I wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah.
Because Thomas sees it so differently. I mean, I think what you do is you put Rudiger in there and you put Mason Mount in there, and then you fill in around them. Because those are the two that need to start. I'm not saying they're our best players, but you can't play against Porto without Rudiger.
Yeah.
You need that type of marker. So you're not a choice. He has to play. When Mason Mount's not in the team, it's weird. It's weird now.
Yeah.
Because of the energy levels and because of what he does in every sphere of the game. Other than that, if you put Giroud up front, or Werner up front, or Havertz up front, I'd shrug my shoulders and say, yeah, fine. I'm all right.
Yeah.
I've got a real pain and it's torture for me. Chelsea fans and I disagreed for a long time. Because I have never for a moment dropped my adoration of Jorginho. Never. I've always thought unbelievable. And lots of Chelsea fans have not agreed with me.
Yeah.
But I've never moved and never moved. Oh, okay, he's had a bad game against it.
I had Gab Marcotti tell me the same thing.
And not for a millisecond, right? There's people around the world, if we let him go at any point in his Chelsea career, Man City would have snaffled him up in a millisecond, right?
Yeah.
He's brilliant at it. But, you know, and people, I think a number of people had said things on Match of the Day or whatever about him, and it was garbage because they weren't even at the games. And I disagreed with it strongly. And people started thinking a certain thing about him. I mean, there was a classic one where I found out people saying, well, he always plays side balls. So I went through the stats. He played more through balls by a factor of 2 than anyone else in the league, including De Bruyne. And it's not, this guy is brilliant. He's utterly brilliant. So my problem is, you asked me the team. Kovacic has been brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, and you look at them two together, they are phenomenal together. Where'd you put in goal? And I can't, and it's like if you study maths, you know, like, how many times is 3 going to 2? Well, it doesn't really. Yeah. And it's torture. It's utter torture.
Yeah.
And I want to find a place for N'Golo. But yeah, you could put him as one of the 2 off this front man. And he's very good there.
Yeah.
But so is Pulisic, and so is Havertz, and so is Odoi, and so is Mount, and so is millions.
Yes, so many options. Bolstered squad.
So what you do is, I think what you do is simply, you just accept that some of the guys will play and start some of the games, and some of the guys will play and start other games. And at the moment, if he plays whatever those guys he plays. And I just shrug my shoulders and say, fine, it's okay. I'm kind of happy with it.
Lovely. Well, that's a great place to leave it. I mean, people, that Porto part, listen, the game's tomorrow. I hope you guys are really looking forward to it. I know I am. The only part missing from that Champions League game is the fans, but we will wait. And hopefully Reece James and Mason Mount will be walking through Heathrow Airport with the Big Ears trophy at the end of the season. Pat, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, and obviously Dan alongside to give us the real in-depth part at the start from the historical point of view. I know you've got a book coming out as well. Do you want to let the people know about that? We've got a link in the description as well. And I think there's a live event that's actually that they can join, isn't there?
There will be. Oh, funny, I knew when that was. Look at 4 Indies. You look up that, and there's a live event coming up 20th of May. Hey, big sell.
Love that.
It's called The Accidental Footballer. You can get it in late May. My entire period at Chelsea's covered in it. It's a bit weird for a football book, I have to tell you. But I've given it out to quite a few people, and it's kind of got a pretty good reaction, which I'm pretty excited about. In simple terms, I just hope when people buy it, they enjoy it because there's plenty of entertainment and there's plenty of fun stories in there. There's a lot of stuff that you won't know as football fans. Because in the very simplest terms, here's the gig. I tried really hard not to be a professional footballer and failed. Right?
I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that to me.
Exactly. This is where we're coming from, right? So I ended up being an outsider inside the game. So you've heard lots of stuff and read lots of stuff in books and stuff about an insider's view of the inside of the game. But have you ever seen an outsider saying, look, this is what it's really like. These people are mental. These people are mad. They do strange things from an outsider's point of view, as in someone who does see, because they're in a bubble, the footballers. So I kind of wrote it from that angle, and I've written every word myself. So if it's rubbish writing, just blame me. Can't blame a ghost writer.
Is that available now?
No, 20th of
late May.
20th of May. You can order it online now via Amazon. If you get it through Waterstones, they'll give you this a signed copy for the same price. So, well,
Lovely.
Sorry?
Just in time for Father's Day, Matisse. That's a good little
little drop of the hint there. Well, listen, Pat, we really appreciate the stories you've given us here as well, and a really good insight into the attacking side of the game as well as a winger yourself. I mean, Dad, any final words before we wrap up?
Oh, it's just been an absolute pleasure just listening to you. I could listen to you all day. I'd love it if we could do this again one time. I know you're super busy, but it's just wonderful. There's so many questions I wanted to ask you, but obviously, I can't hog it to myself. But it's been an absolute pleasure.
Do it again when I release the book in a few months' time. Do it again.
100%. 100%.
It'll be an awful lot of fun, and it's always great to have a chance to talk to Chelsea fans. I mean, I never turned down the chance to talk to Chelsea fans because it's a very, very, very special club, and the fans are very, very special people, and they'll always be special in my heart. They made somebody who didn't want to be a footballer love being a footballer. So that was well done, Chelsea fans, and it was part of it. So thanks.
Well, I can't think of a better way to leave it, so I'll leave it there. And thank you so much to the chat. You guys have been brilliant. You guys have been absolutely loving it. There's a lot of love and support for Pat in the comments there. And I hope you guys got a good insight into the current game and obviously the game as well when Pat was playing. So, I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Actually, I'll see you tonight for the Battle of the North at 7 p.m. and then obviously tomorrow for the review of Porto. And everybody stay safe. I'll see you guys in a bit. Thanks so much.